O2 football post-game show in Las Vegas. The PG, scores, highlights, guests, and storylines from the Raiders and the NFL. It's your time to sound off and shout about the day's highs and lows. Call now, 702-889-5978. Here's Scott Gulbranson and your host, Tony Cordasco.
And from the studios of CBS Sports, 1140 a.m., this is the PG, your go-to football postgame show. We're going to be recapping all of the Week 9 action, preview what's ahead, and as always, there's an extra dose of Raiders news as they come off of 2 losses within the last week. Call-in number 702-889-5978, and we are also live on the radio.com app, live on YouTube and Facebook, and, of course,
Twitter.
Twitter.
Yes.
And Twitter.
We're everywhere.
Okay, and David Stepanian is here as our engineer. Scott Gulbranson. Now, the first scoring update of the day, and all the action in the morning was kind of blasé. The afternoon games.
Just crazy.
Or as our millennial friends like David Stepanian say, meh. Is that
meh? M-E-H.
M-E-H.
That is correct.
All right. I had to look that up in the whatever that is.
The Millennial Dictionary.
Handbook. All right, so let's get to some scores.
All right, here we go. Let's start with action from earlier today. It was the Atlanta Falcons hammering the Redskins 38-14. It was the Vikings 24 over the Lions 9. It was the Dolphins 13, the New York Jets 6. The Jets had snap problems. We'll talk about that a little later. It was the Kansas City Chiefs who continue to roll in a 37-21 win over the Cleveland Browns. It was the Carolina Panthers 42, and they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 42-28. The score was 41-9. The Bears over the hapless Bills. Them Giants and the Raiders probably at the bottom of the barrel, folks. It was the Steelers 23, the Ravens 16 in a game that usually is a tough contest. Really wasn't as close as the score indicates. And current scores as we go through the day. Right now, it's the Texans holding on to a slim lead over the Denver Broncos by the score of 19-17. That one late in the fourth. It is the Chargers 25. The Seahawks 17, so the Seahawks have the ball and are driving. And in New Orleans, one of the most exciting games we've watched in a long time, the Rams tied it up with a 2-point conversion. It is 35-35 all. You're up to date with your scoreboard here on the PG.
And in the second half in that Rams-Saints game, it's been all Rams, 18-0. They trailed in this game 35-17 at the break, and the Rams have really made some good adjustments, Scott, at halftime to really shut down so far this New Orleans Saints team, but they just keep coming and battling and fighting.
Yeah.
And I just like the mentality of this Ram team.
Well, and that's what when you look at what you think is a championship team. Now, whether or not they go undefeated, I'm not really concerned with that. But when you look at teams who you think have an opportunity from a talent level and from an ability level from how they're playing to win a championship, to win a Super Bowl, Tony, you look at the resiliency of this Rams club every time they're down. You said it earlier when we were going before we went on the show. They never get rattled, right? They're always calm. Jared Goff is always calm, and they make big plays. They just do.
So we're going to have, and we'll update you with these scores as they happen and just bring you to the conclusion of all these afternoon games. It's a surprise that the Rams and Saints still have 8:44 to go in the game.
It's a long one.
Yeah, this has been a long game, and it'll take another hour before they're finished. They might be completed with this game, might be over by the time we're finished with our PG show. So let's get into some of the earlier action. I want to start off with the Chiefs and the Browns, and the Chiefs today winning it 37-21. So in Vegas, that's a winner if you took the Chiefs.
Yes, it is.
Minus 9.5. You know, it's kind of close to the line there. But the Browns were going for 2-point conversions early in this game, which I do not understand, even if you missed extra points, and that's a part of the game these days. There's going to be, I think, a time in the NFL when they just get rid of kickers. There won't be place kickers. They won't be kicking field goals. Everyone's going to go for it on 4th down. So we have Hugh Jackson out, Todd Haley out, Greg Williams, not only the defensive coordinator, but now the head coach. And since 2010, Teams that have fired their coaches mid-season, Scott, are now 7-8. Doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. I just throw some random stupid number out. So, Patrick Mahomes, another big day. Man, I think he had a big day in spite of an off day for this Chiefs defense. I was not impressed with the Chiefs D. I think that the Browns had several opportunities today. They could not capitalize. The Chiefs had a lot of defensive lapses. Mahomes on the day throws for 3 more touchdowns, and Kareem Hunt had 3 touchdowns in the game. So we've been keeping track of Patrick Mahomes, right? So now 29 passing touchdowns, right?
Amazing.
So his numbers today, Scott, 23 of 32, 375, and he also threw a pick. And I was looking this up because now Mahomes still needs to has to average 4 passing touchdowns a game to top Peyton Manning's 55 passing touchdown season. Just think of how remarkable that season was, because
Amazing.
Look at what Patrick Mahomes has done so far this year.
Yeah, and it was, again, it was typical of what he's been able to do, and just, impressive. Again, we talked about the Rams and their inability to be rattled, and I think that, to me, is what you see with Patrick Mahomes, too, right, is a kid who goes out there who is really just phenomenal, and he's had help, right? He's had some guys who I think have really been there for him, and who you can't forget Travis Kelce, right? Travis Kelce has been a big target for him and done really, really big by Patrick Mahomes. In fact, he hit him twice today. Here's one of those touchdowns.
Got to find a way to keep him out of the end zone. Mahomes throwing, end zone, touchdown, Travis Kelce.
I think that was your going down pass, Trent. He looked it off, looked left, came back and hit him on the post.
Yeah, there you go. So, again, 2 touchdowns to Travis Kelce today, and they just look unstoppable when it comes to the offense. And like you said, the defense came down to earth today, Tony. We've said week in, week out, including when we had Carrington Harrison from the Ticket there in Kansas City on pregame a couple weeks ago, and that is this defense is not that good, but they just continue to play. And the offense, again, is so good that they can overcome some of those defensive laps. And today, probably their worst defensive game in a while. And there was the offense. There was Patrick Mahomes. There was Travis Kelce. There was Kareem Hunt. And they were able to overcome it.
Well, we were watching the game today, and we saw a 3rd and 20. A 3rd and 20 for this Chiefs team. Again, I like these teams that are poised like the Rams and like the Chiefs. And to some degree, I'd have to say the Saints, in everything that Drew Brees does. He's somebody's goat. He's got to be someone's goat, and the goat in a positive way, not in the way, the manner that we were brought up to think a goat was. So it's a 3rd and 20, a 5-yard pass to Ware, and he picks up a first down because they just don't panic. They take the underneath, which the defense has given them. It's like a 5-yard route, and then the rest, they have so many talented players on that team. That they can come. There's a lot of athletes that could come up with the big plays, and then later on in that series, it was that Kelce throw, the throw to Kelce for the touchdown.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, any way you look at it, I keep trying to look at, I think, what could be weaknesses and where is this pressure point to where these Chiefs are not going to live up to kind of what's happened so far early in the season. And we're only halfway. Remember, we still got time to go, so anything can happen. But I just see this team going deep. I think in the AFC, really, the Chargers may have something to say about it overall, Tony, but I just still think that the Chiefs and the Patriots are on a crash course for the playoffs and the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, today, Cleveland, no baseball, so it was all Chiefs and no Indians today. Baker Mayfield, 29 for 42, 297, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Nick Chubb, 22 for 85 yards on the ground and a touchdown. And what impresses me most about Chubb is that he had in that one drive where he scored a touchdown, 40 yards on the drive. So he's a guy, I think if they continuously feed him the rock, I think he's going to produce a lot more and also take some time off the clock and take some pressure off of Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, and Cleveland officially has a Chubby. And I think that they are they made the right move with the trade and making sure that Chubb gets more carries. And much like we talk about our home team, right? The Raiders, eventual home team. You got to start going to the young guys, see what they have. And they drafted Nick Chubb. He was highly touted out of Georgia, and I really like what they're doing with him. They just got to give him the rock and let him go the rest of the year.
And every Baker Mayfield start this season resulted in at least 3 sacks, except for today. So only not quite an improvement, just sacked twice today. 388 yards on offense for the Browns, but they give up 499 and 37 points for the Chiefs. And that can't continue there in Cleveland. And there's another situation there where they have to clean house now and they have to retool, and it appears as though they're going to have to start again, although they have some good pieces in place.
Yeah, and I think, when you talk about the coaching here, it sets the culture, it sets the attitude in the locker room and amongst the team. And right now, you fire a coach midseason, it's never easy. You talked about 7-8 record for teams that do it. So you got to look at this year as it's a long tryout, it's a long scrimmage. You never know, though. You can luck out and you can win some games and suddenly get some momentum going. But it's going to be interesting to see what directions the Browns go. We've heard rumors of college coaches, other pro coaches, but certainly that's the future. The future is going to be someone who can come in there and change the culture and get it ready for a winning culture.
A lot of these place kickers cannot make a short extra point, yet they're booming 56, 58, and Will Lutz just made a 54-yard field goal with 6:28 to go. And that puts the Saints in a wild one ahead of the Rams 38-35. Stay tuned. We've got much more on the way. We'll recap all of today's action when we return right here on the PG Las Vegas on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
The PG with Tony Cordasco and Scott Goldbranson on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 AM, Las Vegas. Call now and rave about your team's Sunday stat line, 702-889-5978.
And we welcome you back to the PG. We've got two finals now, one game with still an hour and a half to go. It's actually 4.5 to go, and the Saints are leading the Rams. No change there, 38-35. The Rams with the football.
Yes.
And then the other two games went final.
Yes, it was Manchester United. No, just kidding. It was the Chargers 25 and the Seahawks 17, despite a late charge, excuse the pun, by the Seahawks. The Chargers now move to 6-2 on the season. As a matter of fact, I said 5-2 earlier.
You said 5
we were
and 2
off the break.
off the air. It didn't count.
It didn't count.
Does not count.
So we have that final. Also, the Texans, another AFC West opponent here. The Texans topped the Broncos, 19-17. So the Texans are on fire. Deshaun Watson looks great, and those are your two finals as the Rams and the Saints still mix it up, and we'll update you on that one as the Saints scored again. Looks like, yep.
Oh, the old cell phone trick on the celebration.
Yes, he did. He had a phone in there. I think he's going to get fined for that.
Yeah, that's going to be a fine.
That's going to be a fine. 44-35 now. The Saints move up, and it looks like, unless the Rams can really come back here, it looks like the Saints might get rid of that undefeated season dream for the Los Angeles Rams.
Horrible coverage on the corner.
Yep. See, we give it to you
Is
real
that
time
Thomas?
here,
I think that was Thomas who scores the touchdown on a long pass.
Long pass.
Yeah.
Drew Brees. Drew Brees is the GOAT.
And then he hid a cell phone in the padding.
Yes.
And there comes a flag at his feet. And he's like, "Hi, Mom. It's
Hi,
me."
Mom. It's me. Selfie. Instagram.
He should be doing FaceTime
or
with Mom.
Yeah, Snapchat.
Snapchat with Mom.
No Tinder, though.
Okay. No Tinder. So, Steelers defeat the Ravens today, 23-16. Ben Roethlisberger throws a couple of touchdowns, and he runs for a touchdown. James Conner with 107 yards on the ground, and he caught a 7-yard touchdown pass from Big Ben.
Steelers try to take the lead. Roethlisberger hooks a pass underneath. Caught by Conner. He's got the angle. Conner bangs his way in for the touchdown. Hit by Eric Weddle. Not enough to keep him out of the end zone.
And that was the touchdown there. Steelers looked good today. What happened in this game, I think, there were a lot of long drives. So the magic number is 75. Steelers, 2 75-yard drives for touchdowns. The first one that, we were talking in the studio here as we were watching the game, 12 plays and 75 yards in the second quarter. And I said, wow, that just took the wind out of the sails of the Ravens. But the Ravens battled back in the game. And then later on in the third quarter, it was a 15-play, 75-yard drive for the Steelers. And then the Ravens had a 75-yard drive that was capped off by a 1-yard touchdown run by Alex Collins.
Yeah, and I don't think it took the wind out of their sails. I think it clipped their wings, Tony. But I will say, I will say this. I will
see what he did. That's what they would say on social media.
See what they did.
See what he just did.
Har har. I do think when you look at that Ravens team before the game, early this morning, Ian Rappaport reported that Harbaugh's job was on the line, that it could come as early as today. I think that's stupid. You mentioned it early, 7-8 when you fire a coach midseason. I don't know. I just think that this game overall, when you look at what happened, and I know you got some more details to go over, but the Ravens are a team on a downward trend, and it's going to get ugly, I think, in Baltimore.
Zadarius Smith, he fell on Ben Roethlisberger's right shoulder in the fourth quarter. And then Joshua Dobbs comes in to complete a pass to he completed a long pass to Jesse James, actually 21 yards. And so that was cool. The guy comes in cold off the bench and just throws one pass. And then Ben comes back. He completes a 51-yard pass to Jesse James. And that was a late field goal drive that added the cushion there from 20-16 up to 23-16. And it looked as though Ben was going to be out for the game. He was just out. It looked like he really got stung bad.
Yeah, it did. And as much as we have a lot of Raider Nation fans who listen to the show, but I'll tell you, how can you deny how consistent and how good the Pittsburgh Steelers organization has been and how resilient they are. I mean, if you look at what's happened to them, of course, you have your best player in Le'Veon Bell, who sits out, again, was a no-show today, okay, isn't going to play for this team. I don't think that's going to happen. And of course, you had James Conner, another touchdown today. He's done a great job. You got to give it to Tomlin. I mean, he's really done a great job of keeping that team together and focused.
And the Steelers are 29-18 as underdogs under Mike Tomlin.
29-18.
Yeah.
Wow.
As underdogs. So they were under a field goal dog today. A lot of the late money, I think, came in on the Steelers. And the Steelers now, by virtue of that win today, they'll own all the tiebreakers if it comes down to them and the Ravens. I like what the Ravens do sometimes offensively. And today, Lamar Jackson, who's the gadget guy, today they set him out as a wide receiver. And there was one play where Flacco had him wide open on a route that was right near the end zone, never saw him. And Flacco on the day, 23 of 37 for 209. But the highlighted play of the game, Ben Roethlisberger on a 4th and 6, not only the quick kick as he punched the ball, he does it with his left foot.
He did it with,
He's right-handed.
I couldn't believe it.
Right-footed.
We were in the studio, and somebody's like, why is he kicking with his left foot? Well, first of all, why is he kicking, period?
Yeah, the quick kick, the punt was like a pretty amazing there.
It was about a 30-yarder.
Yes,
30-yard,
yeah,
which
was returned about 27.
Yeah,
it was a returnable short punt,
close to the 30 is where they were.
But he did okay.
You know what though? I like it because it's a play that's hardly used in the NFL any longer. But if you're going to surprise somebody and you have enough faith in your quarterback or whoever it is back there to do it, then I think why not? I mean, why not try to catch a team? I'm not saying it's going to work even 15% of the time. But if you can do it and maybe catch your opponent off balance, why not?
Up next, bring back the drop kick.
That's right.
So Ben with
Jump
Ben with a broken finger too, the index finger on his left hand, and so this is the time of year I think that Ben Roethlisberger likes to play banged up. He really does. I just think it's part of his DNA that he's going to be hurt at this, and he just has to really suck it up. So tonight he'll be icing down the shoulder, and then the index finger, which he had a glove on, and it was all bandaged and taped. And they showed him, as he was receiving the ball, on the snaps, where he just kind of guided the football with his left hand into his right. So he didn't really, try to grip it even. He just kind of guided it to his right hand, and then he did all the damage. They win the big games. I mean, that's all you can say about Tomlin.
Yeah.
They win big games. They win games that they're not supposed to win. They had a great game plan once again. And for crying out loud, James Conner has been, to me, one of the most valuable pieces of this Steeler team.
Well, and is he an MVP candidate?
He's got to be in the talks. He's got to be in the
conversation. I'm not saying he's going to win it, but he's got to be up there.
He has to be in the conversation.
Because you take Le'Veon Bell out of the lineup there, okay? And we know about Antonio Brown. We know how good he is, okay? So you have your guy in your pass offense. But when it comes to the run, Le'Veon Bell and what he means to that team, it's so huge. So you take him out of the mix, boy, that left a big hole for the Steelers, and James Conner's filled it. The other thing I want to talk about, Ben Roethlisberger, you talk about his injuries and how he likes to play banged up.
And how he likes to pump fake 20 yards downfield.
And fake out gullible safeties, right? But is there anybody, I mean, seriously, look how tough that guy is. I mean, he is the poster boy for, spit and rub some dirt on it and get back on the field. I mean, he's just tough.
Sorry to interrupt you there. Was that Eli Apple who just broke up a pass?
It was.
Could that be?
It was.
So it was a 4th and 2 at midfield.
He used to play for the Jets. No, Giants.
The Giants, yes. It was a 4th and 2 from midfield.
And that's it.
And
he kind of broke it up.
Yeah,
I mean,
with 3 and change.
The receiver still should have caught the ball. The Rams have had
Apple, by the way.
The Rams have had a couple big passes today that should have been caught by the receivers that was not.
Yeah,
that were not. Excuse me.
Yeah, but I mean, they have to also blame their defense today. And
absolutely.
For the first time this season, I just saw McVay asking for a pass interference call on that play, very animated, and he has not lost his poise. But today, we're kind of seeing some of the deficient areas of the Rams, where defensively, especially against pass plays. But hey, Drew Brees just does not get the attention and the notoriety that he really does deserve.
He does.
I mean, this is an incredible game plan, and this is a game where the Saints could have quit. once the Rams come back to tie it up, after being down 21, they tied at 35.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, we have seen, I think, again, one of the greatest of all time, if not top 5. But also the Saints at home. I mean, it's tough to go into the Big Easy and beat them. I don't care if you're the Rams, and I still think the Rams are the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl. But I will tell you that if you are the Saints and you have home field advantage, at least through most of the playoffs, that's going to be good. You're going to go far.
Coming up on the PG, we'll take a look at some of the more action. We'll recap the Falcons-Redskins game. We're going to keep it here so we can join in to our local audience here. Okay, that's what we're going to do. Well, that's good news.
That is good news. So the folks that are listening over the air can hear us.
Yes. No, the folks that right now we're on radio.com, and we thank everyone out there globally for listening to our broadcast of the PG. And now we're going to be joined locally by our good friends here at CBS Sports 1140 AM in Las Vegas. So the Falcons defeat the Redskins 38-14. And the biggest news of the day, Scott, is Julio Jones scores a touchdown.
It's, you know what, stop the presses. Cats and dogs living together. Mass hysteria. Sorry, Ghostbusters reference.
Yeah.
So
movie reference.
Yeah, I got plenty of them. But yes, it was incredible game. We'll talk about Julio Jones actually scoring when we come back.
We'll take a break. Back with more right after this.
The PG on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 AM. Your live, local NFL post-game experience. Call now and let Raiders Nation hear your Sunday best. 702-889-5978.
Welcome back, and it's the 2-minute warning in New Orleans. And the Saints go for it on a 4th and 1, and they will pick up the first down and seal the victory as they knock the Rams out of the unbeaten ranks. 45-35 is your score. And we were talking about Julio Jones scoring the touchdowns. It was one of 4 TDs thrown by Matt Ryan today. So every time you count this guy out, he comes back, Mr. Matty Ice himself. And Julio Jones today, boy, he needs to be rewarded every once in a while, every now and then. 7 receptions. He scored a late touchdown on a 35-yard screen pass, and it was his first touchdown in 12 games.
12 games after that big money deal. And then, of course, not only that, but then the threatened holdout and wanting another deal after getting the other big deal. But he's produced. I mean, he's allowed rookie Calvin Ridley to come in and do an amazing job as well. So even though he's not getting in the end zone, which he did today, it shows you why he was important to that team and why they ended up paying him the money he wanted.
They've had a lot of injuries here with this Falcons team. So they have the injury bug. 3 offensive linemen were out today. The kicker, Matt Bryant, was out. Running back Brian Hill, they were all inactive. Robert Alford, a corner, was out. And this is a team now that plays 2 out of the next 3 on the road. But every time we sort of leave the Falcons out of the picture, they just pop back up here. And so Tevin Coleman today, a couple of touchdowns, 30-yard touchdown reception, 10-yard catch. And our guy, Calvin Ridley, scores. Ito Smith.
Judge.
Ito, the judge. Aaron Judge thinks he's the judge, but Ito Smith might be he's the football equation, of course, to Aaron Judge. Ito Smith, named after Judge Ito,
yes.
With a rushing touchdown. So Calvin Ridley, though, he got a little bit shaken up, I guess, in the game.
Yeah, he took a hit to the head and actually was cleared to play to return, but did not. So I credit the Falcons with that, actually saying, you know what, we got this game in hand, and they felt pretty good about where they were. So they just kept him on the sideline, which I think is not a bad thing when a guy gets hit in the head. Even if he is cleared through the concussion protocol, why not give him the opportunity to just feel better?
Ryan today, 26 of 38, and the Falcons did not have to punt until the third quarter of the game. You know why? They controlled the ground game. That's why. They converted on 3rd downs, and they rushed for over 100 yards for the first time in 7 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, that's incredible. Speaking about inconsistent, did we mention inconsistency? No. But Adrian Peterson. So 1 week here on the PG, we're talking about
Ageless.
Just the ageless wonder. And the next week, we're like, where was he? He wasn't even a factor. And today was one of those non-factor games. 17 rushing attempts and just 9 yards in the game.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. You have a guy with that age and the mileage that's on Adrian Peterson. It's not that he can't do it in short spurts, right? You see a week. But if you notice, if you look back at the season, Tony, it's about every other week or every 2 weeks where he'll have a really, really good game, which is why you need a second back. And he's a great back to spell, I think, a younger guy. And Darius Geis, of course, blew out his knee in the preseason. But they could have very easily had Adrian Peterson as a nice change of pace, and he would do really, really well, but not going to be a guy who's going to carry the load for you every single game.
And Alex Smith today was the leading rusher, 1 carry for 22 yards.
Craziness.
1 for 22. And, AP had 149 yards against the Giants last week. Alex Smith today, 30 out of 406 for 306 yards and a touchdown. And so we'll keep an eye on this Falcon team here, where they do have the talent, especially on the offensive side, and they need to somehow get healthy because that's been one of the biggest issues that they have faced this season.
Yeah, Tony, 491 total yards, right, for the Falcons, as you mentioned, and over 7.5 yards per play. But again, the big Achilles heel for this team is going to be that defense. And you talked about injury, which has hampered them on defense too. It's too bad. If I was a Falcon fan, I'd be upset because, man, if they had half a defense, this team would be right up there with the Saints, I think.
They sure would be. And the Saints, that is now officially a final 45-35. The Rams are no longer undefeated on the season. The Vikings defeat Detroit today 24-9. The big story there, Minnesota goes sack crazy. So Matthew Stafford was sacked today 10 times. 10 times. That is a franchise record for the Vikings. Daniel Hunter had the game of a lifetime. He had 3.5 sacks, and he also returned a fumble for a touchdown, scoop and score 32 yards.
Unbelievable. I mean, you look at that defensive stat line for the Lions, and it's incredible. And it just to give up 10 sacks, if I'm Matt Patricia, I'm like, holy heck, what are we doing here? Because that offensive line actually was his focus for the Lions in the offseason. We had Darryl Ryder from the Detroit Free Press on talking about it a couple weeks ago. He talked about how they had really progressed well, felt good about where their offensive line has been, and actually they have played better. But this is one of those weeks that Viking defense, let's give them credit too, right? That Viking defense really played up to what everyone thought it would be and the full potential.
Yeah, and this is the defense we expected to see at the start of the season. And then offensively, things started to come around as Latavius Murray today had a 1-yard touchdown run. Adam Thielen continues to impress, 2-yard touchdown catch on the day. Stephon Diggs still out with the rib injury. So what they did was they brought up Chad Beebe from the practice squad, so that could be an indicator that this Diggs injury could be even worse than anticipated originally. And he's a big cog for that offense. They need to get him back here, but they're winning without him right now. It's the first time we've seen good defense, a solid defense like their previous billing, heading into the season for the Vikings today.
Yeah, and you have to wonder if they're going to make a move at wide receiver if Diggs can't come back. And, of course, the trade deadline's passed, but there are guys out there who I think could maybe help them. So we'll keep an eye on that and see what the Vikings end up doing.
For Detroit today, Darius Slay. So he comes back today, and Slay with the first takeaway since Week 5 against Green Bay. I didn't even realize this. So he comes back with the interception, the pick of Kirk Cousins. Picks off Cousins in the second quarter of play there. And also Ziggy Ansah, the defensive back, came back today. He had a sack in the game for Detroit, and he hadn't played since Week 1 because he's been out with a shoulder injury. Seriously, though, this Detroit team from week to week, we have no idea what to expect with this squad.
And even though they have the new coach in Patricia, it seems like the Lions have been this way for the last 3 years, right? They have talent, they have spots that are weak, and they're just so dang inconsistent. You just don't know what you're going to get week to week. And again, the defense for the Lions was a bit shaky. But you look at this line. I mean, some of these stats. The Vikings today, Tony, 23 minutes of possession. That's it. And they scored 24 points. So it shows you that they were very efficient. And despite it means the Lions were out there a lot. And they were getting sacked a lot, but they could not move the ball effectively, could not score.
Yeah, and they need to have the rushing game going.
It's been horrible, yeah.
Yeah, and it's been, again, they had a couple of 100-yard rushing days this season, and after that, that's about it. And we don't know week to week really what to expect. They started off the season with a loss to the miserable Jets, and we will talk about that entire situation and what Bart Scott from our sister station in New York at WFAN, what he has said today on the NFL Network, as he just went off on Todd Bowles.
Oh, yeah.
Todd Bowles has to be fired pretty soon.
Yeah,
he's on the clock.
And this is the time.
Hey, we put Hugh Jackson on the clock last Sunday.
I know. We're the kiss of death.
Yeah, and what did I say, though? They're not going to fire him today.
No, they're going to wait because they fired their basketball coach.
Right.
Yeah. Tyronn
Lue gets fired. And so in Cleveland, you don't want to battle for that front and back page space. And so, yeah, they did the right thing on the PR front.
Yeah, this is the time of the year, Tony, though, where teams that were supposed to compete or get better and aren't lose coaches. I mean, like you said, it's not something that actually helps that much, but I think organizationally what teams do is they want to move on. And so sometimes the best way to move on is just to say goodbye. And so you have to wonder, if they're next. I mean, the Jets certainly are a candidate for that. But everyone else is kind of on a new coach, so I don't think we're going to see any other mass firings. Although the Harbaugh situation in Baltimore, I think everybody needs to watch that.
Yeah, that's getting a little dicey as well. They had a lot of conversations about that heading into today's game in Baltimore with the loss. Well, we thought Vegas sports teams were doing pretty bad. Washington, D.C., other than, of course, the Capitals, man, everything. 1-7 Wizards? Are you kidding me? The PG Las Vegas. Stay tuned for more right after this on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
Radio 1140.
The PG with Tony Cordasco and Scott Goldbranson on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m. Las Vegas. Call now and rave about your team's Sunday stat line, 702-889-5978.
And we welcome you back. It's so good to be on here in Las Vegas on the PG, your go-to post-game show. The Panthers defeat Tampa today 42-28. It was all Panthers in the first half as they piled up 35 first-half points, which was a team record. A team record. 5 touchdowns on the first 5 possessions for the Panthers today. And one of the early TDs was this Curtis Samuel touchdown on a double reverse.
Off the fake to McCaffrey. Moore pitches it back to Samuel. Newton leading the way for Curtis Samuel. Cuts it back inside. Samuel still on his feet inside the 5 to the end zone. Touchdown. What a play.
Yes, what a play off of a double reverse, and that was one of the big plays there in an explosive first half for the Panthers. But Tampa Bay comes back, and they close the gap to 35-28. And after that happens, Scott, back-to-back 20-yard gains for the Panthers. You know, Norv Turner finds a weakness in the right side of the formation of the defensive side for Tampa Bay. And then Newton with a touchdown pass to Curtis Samuel, the second such touchdown for Samuel on the day. That opens a lead to 42-28. That's where it finishes. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Norv Turner as an offensive coordinator for the Panthers. And I think he's flown a little bit under the radar in all the good that he's done there for the Panthers.
Norvell, yes. Not a good head coach, but when it comes to offensive coordinator.
And that's the next question.
Yeah.
I mean, if he continues at this pace, does he get some recognition where he can find another head coaching job?
I don't think so.
It'd be great for the Giants about now. Just kidding.
I mean, I saw what he did in Oakland. I saw what he did in San Diego. I don't think so. David, what do you think, man?
I feel like the Panthers are just a team who've gotten no respect all season long. I
think so.
I bet on the game a lot, and ever since week 1, I got them at -2 against the Cowboys. But every week, I feel like, in terms of point spreads, at least, like they're not big favorites. I mean, this week they were -6 against the Bucs, and they cover again. So I feel like we finally said it on VSiN. I mean, this is a team that just doesn't get looked at too often. They're flying way under the radar.
Yeah, but does Norvell Turner move the line?
Well, I think even when you look at this Bucs game, I mean, people say, oh, they let the Bucs come back. They're not such a good team. They blew a big lead. So there's still going to be a lot of negatives to take away from this, but still a win is a win.
Well, and Tony, I think, I mean, again, one of the guys you talk about the Panthers, David, not getting a lot of attention for what they're doing. Cam Newton, of course, is great, but I think one of the most exciting players in the NFL is Christian McCaffrey.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And to me, though, again, it's the way that Norv Turner has moved him around to the formation within that offensive scheme.
Yeah.
And then also, too, I feel as though Cam Newton is definitely starting to understand a little bit more about expectations, right? And what they're seeing. And then he has to be listening to Norv Turner.
Oh, yeah.
And just, what they're doing and the plays that they're running. Hey, the offensive play selection has been incredible. Defensively, I didn't expect them to have a letdown today after they were having a blowout and a lot of fun at the end of the first half. But I think what they're doing there schematically, and we talked about them going no huddle.
Yes.
And they really did not have to go to that today. But after their backs were against the wall, they get back-to-back big gains. They start chunking it again, and then they cap it off on the Curtis Samuel touchdown from Cam Newton. I just thought, we've talked about poise on the show, and that was poise personified.
Well, and they win their 10th straight game at home, right? And they're one of those teams, guys, that I think
that are like the Boston Red Sox, where they play every game at home. It appears as though the Panthers play every game at home.
But the other thing, guys, is the fact that I'm not going to be a team. I don't care who I am. If I'm the Rams, whoever, I don't want to be a team that has to play the Panthers in the playoffs. Like, I just don't, especially if you're at home, if they're at home and you have to go in there and play. So if I'm one of those wild card teams, or I have to go there and play them in a divisional playoff, they have a lot of weapons, and when they put it all together, they're very, very dangerous. I don't care who it is.
Yeah, and look, they're 6. They've moved on to 6-2 now. Saints beating the Rams. They're 7-1. No one's saying these teams haven't met each other once yet this season. They play each other in 2 of the last 3 weeks, week 15 and week 17. So it's almost a perfect recipe. It feels almost perfect that the NFC South is going to come down to the final few weeks.
Ryan Fitzpatrick today, 24 for 40, 243, and he had 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions on the day. Adam Humphries with the 2 touchdowns, 2 of those touchdowns, I should say. And it appears as though now Tampa will go, and they're going to stick with Fitzmagic over Jameis Winston.
Yeah, I think that's the right call. I mean, I just don't think – I think when it comes to Jameis, I think he's done in Tampa. I think they're going to move on. I don't see anything to indicate otherwise. And if I'm them, I go with Fitzpatrick too, because he's going to be the kind of guy who has a game like he had today. 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, right? You can overcome that if they play defense at all, which they did not do today. But if they can do that, I'm going to be okay with a guy like that being a caretaker for me for a while until they can figure out what they're going to do after their big drafted quarterback turns out to be a bust.
Earlier today, the Bears defeat the Bills 41-9. Chicago now improving to 5-3, so this matches their best start since 2013. And the Bills falling down to 2-7. The Bears played their second game in a row without Khalil Mack.
Who?
They really didn't need this guy today, but their defense played very well, and they had some big plays. They had a total of 3 first-half takeaways and 14 points in the first half of play, including this big play by Eddie Jackson.
Peterman was that it was mentally tough, and he has to be given the situation. Juggled and eventually caught by Jason Kroom. The ball comes out, and the Bears have it. It's a fumble and a takeaway. Eddie Jackson going the other way for a Chicago touchdown.
65-yard fumble recovery. They also had a Leonard Floyd 19-yard pick six. And so those 3 big first-half takeaways, that opened the score and the margin, and 41-9. They just ran away with this one. Jordan Howard with a couple of touchdowns for the Bears. The Bills today, par for the course, 4 turnovers. Nathan Peterman throws 3 interceptions with Josh Allen, Derek Anderson down. Peterman did score a touchdown, however.
He did.
And that touchdown ends the Bills' drought at 187 minutes plus.
Hey, and he almost got his quarterback rating over 50. It was a 45.
It was 45.
So he was close. And you know what? God bless this guy, because I don't know what pictures he has of whom, but the fact that he's still in the NFL blows my mind. There's some guys out there who are on the waiver wire, to me, who are much better, give you a better opportunity. Of course, they picked up one, and then they got a concussion, and Derek Anderson. But
he was a much better guy
than Peterman.
Well, yeah.
I'm not. I mean, it's a low. That's a low bar to get over, right?
Right.
But the Bills. Hey, I'm not going to make fun of the Bills because they've been decimated with injury. But we all knew going in to this year that offensive line was going to be absolute trash, and it's turned out to be that way.
The Bills have been outscored now 157-56 in their last 6 games.
Woo.
So by 101 points. Holy smokes. And today, I like the way that a lot of the teams are doing different things with their offensive formations. I kind of like to watch how they do things schematically. And, I talked about it earlier with the Panthers. Well, we were watching the games here today, and in the Bear game, we saw where Mitchell Trubisky, they had him flanked out as a receiver, right?
Yep.
And they do the direct snap to Tariq Cohen. So he does the Wildcat. And that's kind of a nice look where they can run some things, some different variations. And they ran the ball today effectively out of that formation. The Bears defeat the Bills 41-9. When we return, we'll recap the rest of today's action. We'll talk about the Raiders, and we'll preview tonight's Sunday night football game. Stay tuned. Hour number 2 of the PG. Straight ahead on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
It's the PG, your weekly go-to football post-game show in Las Vegas. The PG, scores, highlights, guests, and storylines from the Raiders and the NFL. It's your time to sound off and shout about the day's highs and lows. Call now, 702-889-5978. Here's Scott Goldbranson and your host, Tony Cordasco.
And we are back for hour number 2 from the studios of CBS Sports, 1100 a.m., 1140 a.m. It's the PG, your go-to football post-game show. And we're recapping all of the Week 9 action. And as always, we speak Raiders. We'll be talking about them coming up later on this hour. Call-in number, 702-889-5978. We're also found on the radio.com app. We are live today on YouTube, on Facebook, on 1140 a.m. Twitter handle, and, of course, everywhere around the world for all of you to see. David Stepanian's our engineer. Scott Goldbranson is here. And, Scott, let's start things off with a scoring recap.
All right. It was like a heavyweight fight. It was Ali versus Frazier. It was Tyson versus Holyfield. It was the Saints 45, the Rams 35. Something tells me we will have that game again in January. What a great game. Make sure you check that out. Also, it was the Chargers. They moved to 6-2, beating the Seahawks 25-17. It was the Houston Texans. They moved to 6-3, folks, 19-17 over the Denver Broncos, who are in a free fall up in the Mile High City. It was the Falcons 38, the Redskins 14, Vikings 24, the Detroit Lions 9, the Miami Dolphins 13, the New York Jets 6. It was the Browns. They go and they lose at home again to the Kansas City Chiefs, the 8-1 Kansas City Chiefs, 37-21. It was the Carolina Panthers, 42. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 28. Chicago Bears, without Khalil Mack, they take on the Bills, who continue to falter with Nathan Peterman. 41-9 was the final there. And it was the Steelers, 23, and the Ravens 16. And coming up tonight, it is the Green Bay Packers at 3-1 against the 6-2 Patriots in New England.
So Packers at the Patriots, right? So it's only the second meeting between Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady.
That's crazy, isn't it?
It's kind of hard to believe, right? The New England pass rush, I think could be exploited tonight, because they don't have very much pressure on Rodgers. And if that happens, then Rodgers picks them apart. And it doesn't matter how cold it is there in Foxborough, because we know that Rodgers is a cold weather type of a quarterback, unlike Sam Darnold. We'll get into that.
Both California kids, too. Go figure.
Okay, I know. Go figure. But he's got ice in his veins now.
Yes.
And so New England's pass rush, 30th in the league. That has to be one factor. And then we just found out that Gronkowski is out for the Patriots. Sony Michel is out. He was listed as questionable, and now Michel, the rookie, is listed as out. He's inactive for this game. And so you have to wonder what is going to happen. What kind of weaponry tonight does Tom Brady have? And then also defensively, can the Patriots put up with whatever Aaron Rodgers and the Packers throw at them?
Right, and I mean, the Patriots are at home. They're going for their 10th straight home victory as well, so a lot on the line for them. But you're right, you take out Gronkowski, you take out Michel, and suddenly that's two big pieces for Tom Brady. But him and Belichick, Tony, it doesn't seem to matter. When pieces fall off, they seem to find role players who will step in and do what it takes to win the game. I'm excited about this one. I also think, though, it has the potential to be pretty one-sided. As great as Aaron Rodgers is, I'm not convinced on that Green Bay defense. I think there's some holes there, and I think the Patriots could expose those. But we'll see.
They have a good pass rush, though.
They do have a good
pass rush.
Good pass rush.
And tonight, Brady, who's got that very quick release, one of the best in the game, I think they're going to have to get to him and hit him early and often in this game for them to be successful. But I definitely think that Rodgers can move the football. And you have to look at this Green Bay team, a team that a week ago against the Rams in L.A., they went out to that early 10-0 lead.
Yeah.
They weren't able to hang on to that lead, but they played a really good competitive game. And I think it's going to be a good game, back and forth.
I think so too. I think the play of James White's going to be important for the Patriots. If they're gonna win this game, they're going to have to grind it out a little bit, keep the ball out of, just like the Rams did, right? Keep the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hand as much as you can. And so James White's going to be a big part of that. Can he step up in Michelle's absence like he's been able to do, and do that also without Rob Gronkowski? You're going to look at more wide receivers involved in the game here with Julian Edelman and Josh Gordon. Can Josh Gordon, as long as he's not late to the game, can he get out there and be a difference maker in a game like this? And then on defense for the Patriots, Trey Flowers. Is Trey Flowers going to show up and be a dominant? I mean, it's a primetime game, so you expect guys like him, and on the other side of the ball, guys like Devontae Adams, guys on the defense that you talked about, their pass rush, Clay Matthews, who's having a little bit of a resurgence, and then Blake Martinez for the Packers. I love that guy. He's been all over the field.
He played a very good game. We were watching here last week in the studio. And, man, he was so active, and he was in on so many plays.
He was.
And that's a guy that you really have to look out for there. Also within that division, the AFC East we're talking about, the Dolphins defeat the Jets today 13-6. And Bart Scott on the NFL Network, he's also, of course, on our sister station here in the Entercom circle, cluster, or whatever.
Family.
Fam.
The family.
Don't call them fam, because I don't like some of the local one local professional sports team that always uses the term fam, and it drives me nuts. Anyway, okay, that's another matter. For another show.
We'll address it.
Okay, so Bart Scott tonight just going off on Todd Bowles, who's definitely on thin ice in New York. There were a lot of calls for his ouster in New York City this week through the media. They finally started to put some pressure on him because this team is not good. However, they have a lot of potential. They have weapons. They finally have a quarterback. They don't have a center, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Oh, yeah.
But Bart Scott today, and he's one of the more outstanding defensive players the Jets have ever had. One of the most outstanding, I should say. So Bart Scott today says 3 and out is like a turnover. And that's what the Jets were doing repeatedly today. And so now you've got everyone. So Scott's on the radio, middays, WFAN in New York. Well, that's just one faction. The media in New York is putting so much pressure, and I feel as though the end could be very near for Todd Bowles.
Well, and it certainly seems like there's some questionable decision-making there, and New York being the market it is, and the Jets having invested in what they've invested in, especially Sam Darnold. And I want to get to Darnold in a minute because I actually want to defend him. But putting your team into a bad situation, and I think Scott hit on a great point, right? That you played during one of the breaks, which is, look, not only is a 3 and out a turnover, but where are the adjustments? What is Bowles doing when you continue to just pound your head against the wall? It's the definition of insanity when you're doing something over and over and over again, despite the fact that it never works. How do you not just switch it up to switch it up? I mean, that's natural, and he's not doing that at all, Tony.
So 4 interceptions on the day today for Sam Darnold. One was returned by Jerome Baker for a 25-yard pick six, and that was the winning margin for the Dolphins. So there were poor conditions on the field. It rained yesterday, torrential downpours. Miami took on Duke and left behind an absolute quagmire. And we saw a lot of the players slip today, and it was not good traction, whatever. The teams played a similar game last year, similar conditions. I could recall in Miami where it was I think it was muddier, to be honest with you. Well, today, the Dolphins end the 2-game losing streak. Remember when the Fish were 3-0? To start the season?
Injuries have killed them.
Yeah. So, and today, the Dolphins improved to 13-1 when leading at the half under Adam Gase. They led 6-3 at the break. So, I want to get into this. Okay, let's talk Jets offense, which was not very good, which was not good at all. They had one series in which they were in field goal range. Darnold gets sacked. Then there's a delay of game penalty. And then Jason Myers misses a 50-yard field goal wide to the right. The ground and the footing is not good, so why would you attempt at that stage a 50-yard field goal? And so when the Dolphins take over the ball, they've got already good field position, and the Jets were able to stop them there. Then the next Jet possession, offensive possession, Darnold is picked off for the pick six, and they never could really recover. Sam Darnold today, though, one of the biggest issues with this team, snapping the football.
Oh, my gosh. And that's the thing. That's where I want to defend him. Now, I know he threw 4 interceptions today, and one of them terrible, and we'll talk about that one in a second. But if you look at what happened, sacked 4 times today, couldn't get a clean snap. I mean, you're mentioning he couldn't get a clean snap.
I was like,
so what are you supposed to do?
I was like, watch this play here because Spencer Long will snap this ball like it's going to be a fumble. Watch. And lo and behold, he snaps the ball 10 feet.
It was like a slider.
Head.
It was like a slider. It
what
just
was
slid.
That? I mean, what was that all about?
When my 9-year-old plays flag
you
football
like the way
and
I
they center
predicted
it?
that? Well, that was easy to predict at that stage because every single snap was in the dirt, in front of Darnold. Yes, you've got a very good point.
Yeah.
And it should be right there at the belt line. But, you can't be going all over the place. It breaks the concentration. And again, he's still just a rookie learning.
Right, and Sam Darnold's going to make mistakes, so you expect him to throw the occasional pick, and that's fine. You don't want him to throw 4, but he was under pressure a lot. There was not great protection, clearly. The bad snaps, and then, of course, bad play calling, guys. Let me tell you, 2 of 13 on 3rd down.
Yeah.
Holy moly. I mean,
that was bad. No, the play calling was atrocious. The total in this game started at 45.5, bet down to 41 because of the rain and the conditions. Went way under, 13-6 Dolphins with the victory there. Stay tuned, much more coming up on the PG. This is your go-to post-game show right here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
Wildfires burn millions of acres across the country each year. And each year, wildland firefighters battle to contain them, but they can't do it alone. For some communities, it's not a question of if wildfires strike, but when. And a single ember can travel more than 1 mile. As it twists and turns and floats through the air, that single ember can find its way to where you live and can ignite and destroy your home or your community. That single ember can be just as dangerous as the wildfire itself. You can't control where the ember will land, but you can control what happens when it does. You can take action now to prepare your home and your community for wildfire. Get fire adapted. Learn what you can do now to reduce wildfire damage later at fireadapted.org. Prepare, protect, prevail. A public service message brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council. Learn more at fireadapted.org. Wildfires burn millions of acres across the country each year. And each year, wildland firefighters battle to contain them, but they can't do it alone. For some communities, it's not a question of if wildfires strike, but when. And a single ember can travel more than 1 mile. As it twists and turns and floats through the air, that single ember can find its way to where you live and can ignite and destroy your home or your community. That single ember can be just as dangerous as the wildfire itself. You can't control where the ember will land, but you can control what happens when it does. You can take action now to prepare your home and your community for wildfire. Get fire adapted. Learn what you can do now to reduce wildfire damage later at fireadapted.org. Prepare, protect, prevail. A public service message brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council. Learn more at fireadapted.org. Wildfires burn millions of acres across the country each year. And each year, wildland firefighters battle to contain them, but they can't do it alone. For some communities, it's not a question of if wildfires strike, but when. And a single ember can travel more than 1 mile. As it twists and turns and floats through the air, that single ember can find its way to where you live and can ignite and destroy your home or your community. That single ember can be just as dangerous as the wildfire itself. You can't control where the ember will land, but you can control what happens when it does. You can take action now to prepare your home and your community for wildfire. Get fire adapted. Learn what you can do now to reduce wildfire damage later at fireadapted.org. Prepare, protect, prevail. A public service message brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council. Learn more at fireadapted.org.
The Titans take on the Cowboys tomorrow at 4:45 on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
The PG with Tony Cordasco and Scott Goldbranson on CBS Sports Radio 1140 AM Las Vegas. Call now and rave about your team's Sunday stat line 702-889-5978.
It really did go from could the Jets clean up 7 pre-snap penalties from a week ago to can the friggin' Jets even snap the ball?
They couldn't snap the ball.
Yeah.
They could not.
What was the snapper penalty last week?
Roughing the snapper.
Roughing the snapper. They should have roughed the snapper today.
I had a chef, I told you, who roughed the snapper.
What does that mean?
The red snapper.
Oh,
it's a good piece of fish.
Yeah, I missed that one. I was going, not another movie reference. But you're trying to defend Sam Darnold? How?
Absolutely, because I'll tell you why. First of all, he's in a tough situation there. You're not getting the ball from the center cleanly. So that's one problem you got to worry about. You have no footing in that crap in Miami. Why they didn't dome that stadium in is beyond me. Because you know what? I get the Miami weather's nice this time of the year if you like bugs and sweating. But other than that, why wouldn't you? It rains so much. I watched the Miami game yesterday when I was at the park down by the T-Mobile Arena before the hockey game. And it was pouring like you've never seen before, right? And so you have Darnold contending with bad turf, bad snaps, bad play calling. What are you going to do? I mean,
fire the head coach.
Right. He's not in a healthy situation for a rookie, in my view. I think he's got the skill set. There might be a couple rough spots until they can get the right person in there to help him. But at the end of the game, he brought the team back. He had them moving, and then actually he threw just an awful, awful pass, which was his decision. It's a poor pass. It was a typical rookie mistake, but I like the fight in him. He was trying to get his team back, and he was leading them down the field, and then he has the brain fart.
The Jets have to have more turnovers created defensively, and when the Jets hired Todd Bowles, it was for his defensive prowess. He was supposed to build this dominant defense for the Jets, and I still have not seen that. And people were very excited about what was happening earlier on this season. And maybe, because the Jets had drafted, Darnold, I think the expectation level went up, right? And, and in New York, they won a couple of games early on of the season, and now they're expected to win. They were expected to win in Miami today. And I think, and next week's the Bills. So it's like, hey, if we can piece together a couple of wins, back-to-back wins here, get some momentum, and then they still have not played the Patriots, which are going to have to play twice. And the Patriots have owned them. The Jets might win a game here and there. But so for the Jets now, the rest of the season it looks kind of bleak in New York. And I can't say that I blame the Bart Scotts of the world and the media folks in New York for starting to call for a change.
Right, because who are you going to hold accountable? Well, you're not going to hold the young quarterback accountable. It's not his fault.
No. And Bowles doesn't put anything into the offense. We're talking about moving Trubisky out to the flat there as a wide receiver. We're talking about being creative offensively and the things that the Panthers do and rushing and, going up to the ball and playing no huddle and coming up with, different types of schemes to keep the defense off balance. And what do the Jets do? They come straight out after you. And after all those snaps were so god-awful, the snaps were so bad in the Jet game today, why would they move Darnold under center?
Makes no
sense. For crying out loud.
Yeah.
The snaps are going at his feet, out of the shotgun, over his head, wide to the right, to the left, like every which way, but at him. That's when you put him under center and you settle him down and you just do, you and I were saying, just a simple 3-step drop.
Right.
Or have him hand the ball off, run the ball.
In fact, it's weird. I'm going to link this with what's happening with the Raiders, believe it or not. And that is, if you saw what John Gruden's been doing with the Raiders offense, much to the chagrin of Raider Nation, it's exactly that. Because their offensive line is so awful right now and banged up, what they do is they run 5-yard outs, 5-yard crossing patterns to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands quickly so that he doesn't get murdered, and start to move the ball at least chunk by chunk down the field. Why the Jets aren't doing that? And the Jets are going to have another top 10 pick in the draft, right? So they're going to have to go out and get offensive linemen and defensive linemen too to shore up that defense, because the defense, I think, can be okay. They're just a few players short. And then on offense, clearly the offensive line, they need to start with center.
That's the understatement of the day. The Saints defeat the Rams today, in case you joined us late. 45-35 was the final. The Saints just abused the Rams in the first half as Alvin Kamara rushes for 3 touchdowns on the day. Early on, the Rams in this game, they trailed 35-14, and then they come all the way back and they tie it up in the fourth quarter as a Cooper Kupp 41-yard touchdown reception was made there, and then Everett, I guess, had the 2-point conversion, so we're not at 35, but then some late defensive lapses there for this Rams team, and they are knocked out of the unbeaten ranks.
Well, and what I think one of the more successful strategies that the Saints employed against the Rams were they really took Todd Gurley out of the game from a rushing perspective. Yeah, he had 68 yards, okay, but at the same
time, just the one rushing touchdown.
The one rushing touchdown,
his 16th touchdown of the season.
Yes, and he had but he had 24 of those yards on one play, right? Which is what you're talking about. So they took Todd Gurley out of the game. They could not rush the ball effectively, and they got behind. So once they got behind, they had to abandon the run a little bit and rely on the pass, and the Saints played well there. And if you look at it, I mean, they ran the ball effectively. I mean, the Saints who have that double-headed monster in Kamara and Ingram at running back, 141 yards rushing net on the day, they really controlled the ground game, including the time of possession, 33 minutes as opposed to 26 for the Rams. So you got to hear what not only Drew Brees did, but what the Rams were able to do on the ground and from a defensive standpoint.
We just got this tweet out there from David Payne Purdom. It says, quote, goes on the list of top 10 worst Sundays for us, end quote, MGM Vice President of Racing Sports, Jay Rude.
Wow.
So the sports books got buried today. I say this looked like a pretty easy week.
Yeah.
And I was even talking about coming out of retirement to bet on games today.
Yes.
I had my two-team $2 parlay ready to go. So the Rams this week, they add Dante Fowler, and they now have a monster front four, but they really could not do much there. Fowler, I think, had 1 tackle, and that happened in the fourth quarter. Aaron Donald has 10 sacks on the season, but he was pretty much ineffective today. Michael Brockers is the Lamar Lundy to this fearsome foursome. No one, if you do trivia, no one ever remembers Lamar Lundy.
Oh, you got me on that one.
Yeah, Merlin Olsen, Deacon Jones, Rosie Greer, and who was the fourth guy? And you'd be in a drunken stupor, and I can't remember. Lamar Lundy / Michael Brockers.
What about Fred Dreyer?
You know, see, as the Rams were going in to tie it up, they were thinking about handing the football off to Todd Gurley, but he was just going to fall down, and he wanted to make sure that today the Rams did not cover the points.
Well, David, you would have been okay if he fell down.
Sure. I mean, look, Tony, you can't talk about betting around me and not give me a chance to chime in here, because we were talking before we went on air about how just the one-sidedness of certain games today. I think I said 99% of tickets were on the Chiefs.
We're on the Chiefs,
on the Chiefs. 92% of tickets were on the Panthers.
Wow.
Over the Bucks.
92.
But this is the big one that sportsbooks need. 77% of tickets were on the Rams, so at least sportsbooks won that one. I mean, the Saints opened.
They still took a bath because of all the early games.
Well, all the other games, sure. And
not
Saints,
all of the Gurley games.
Saints opened as a 2-point favorite and closed as a 2.5-point underdog, so it was a big swing.
That's a big swing.
And there's been, 3 weeks this year out of the 9 that the casinos, that the books have really been hit hard.
I mean, yeah, there have been this season is probably, as in recent memory, a good one for the players as opposed to the sports books.
Absolutely, except for me. Not for me so much.
Sorry, Scott. Just bet the Panthers. Take the Panthers, man.
Do we have any numbers on what the Rams rushed for today? Because coming into the game, the Saints, they were just giving up 74 yards per game.
Yeah, the Rams rushed for 92.
Wow. So that's that's actually incredible, right?
Yes, and the Rams also average gain per offensive play was 8 yards, over 8 yards versus the Saints 7. So it's one of those games, and they were almost equal. I mean, this was a game that was very, very equal. These teams were pretty well matched. 483 yards for the Rams, 487 for the Saints. And if you look at field goals, about the same. Time of possession, again, was a big deal as well. Third down, now the Rams were 3 of 8. The Saints were 7 of 12. So that played a big factor in the game as well. When you look at having 31 first downs for the Saints, 23 for the Rams.
I did like the fight in the Rams, though, to battle back.
Oh, yeah.
After being down 21. And a lot of times when the team does come back, they exhaust so much energy to get back in the game that they have a letdown of sorts.
Well, and we talked about it before the show started, right? Which was the Rams struggled and almost lost. Really could have lost easily against the Packers last week. And people were talking about, well, that's good. They shouldn't go out and blow everybody out, or they shouldn't have these big wins. They need to know adversity. Excuse me. But this game, that's why I thought the Saints had a good shot in this game, because it's on the road, and the Rams are kind of at that point. That's why it's so hard to go undefeated. I think the Rams actually are going to be better off for having lost this game, as the Patriots have now scored to go up 6-0 over the Green Bay Packers.
Jared Goff today, 28 of 40, 391, 3 touchdowns, and an interception for a quarterback rating of 115.7. And Drew Brees, 25 of 36, 346, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, was not sacked today.
Amazing.
What does that tell you? I mean, about the Saints' offensive line.
Amazing.
And just, they should have blown the doors off the Rams. I mean, this game might not have. If you look at statistically, this game should not have been this close. Although yardage was very, very close. They both were over 400, 480. What did I see there?
Yeah, 480. Over 480. 487, 483.
Wow. The PG continues. We roll on from Las Vegas after this on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
The PG on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 AM. Your live, local NFL post-game experience. Call now and let Raiders Nation hear your Sunday best. 702-889-5978.
And we welcome you back, Tony Cardasco and Scott Colbranson. The LA Chargers today defeat the Seahawks 25-17. The Chargers with touchdowns by Tyrell Williams, by Mike Williams, by Desmond King, and they also had a 42-yard interception return for 6. And the Chargers now, don't look now, but the Chargers are at 6-2.
They are at 6-2, but traditionally, what have they done this time of the year?
Tanked it, like the Raiders.
Yes, like the Raiders.
No, they don't tank.
So interesting though. Melvin Gordon was questionable going into this game.
Yeah,
and he did play clearly. And not only did he play, but 16 attempts, 113 yards with the 1 touchdown. He's really coming into his own, Tony. I think this is a guy who's going to be really big for this team because we know Phillip Rivers can sling the ball around. We know Keenan Allen's there. He had a big day again. Mike Williams. They have good young receivers and a defense that's getting stronger and better even without Joey Bosa. So this team, I think, is at that point where if they're going to make their run, you're going to really see them turn it on and start to do it. And Melvin Gordon's a big reason why.
Yeah, and I had Chargers season tickets, right?
So did I at one time.
And when I had Chargers season tickets living here in Vegas, just because it was the first season for Melvin Gordon.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, this guy is awful.
Yeah, he was
absolutely horrible. The
Yeah.
first year was so bad. I'm like, what do you have going there? Like, the entire team was just in the dumps.
Yeah.
And then there was talk at that time about moving away and everything else. And his first season was horrible. And that was one of the reasons why I gave up my season tickets. I'm like, what does this guy do? He runs into the line and falls down. So he's really become a talented player. Seattle, like, they open up this game with a big drive, 13-play drive, 9 running plays, 4 passing, and then Russell Wilson with a touchdown pass to Jaron Brown, which was a really well-executed play. And then the Chargers had 2 really big drives in this game. 10 plays, 94 yards, and the touchdown on the opening drive, right? And then an 83-yard touchdown drive the second time, and that's when they had the Melvin Gordon touchdown catch. He also later added a 34-yard rushing TD. So they played really well. Today was the 200th consecutive start for Phillip Rivers.
Amazing.
Did you know that?
Yes,
That's
I did.
crazy,
I saw.
huh?
They talked about it during the week, and the thing about it was, Rivers over the last few years has struggled with interceptions. Today, the Chargers didn't have 1 turnover against Seattle, so that was a big part of it. And, today, I don't know what the deal is, but we've seen a lot of games where the teams were victorious who won that held the ball for a shorter period of time than the team they beat. And in this case, the Seahawks had the ball 11 minutes longer than the Chargers. And so that just goes to show you that the Chargers, again, efficient, long plays, 40, like you said, 42-yard interception return helped, of course. 30 yards, 34 yards, 12 yards on touchdown strikes for the Chargers. They're just really hitting their stride now, which will be interesting because when they take on the Chiefs, of course, they're playing the Raiders next week, but after that, when they take on the Chiefs again, should be a heck of a game.
Put that in your analytics pipe and smoke it. So, Keenan Allen today over 100 yards receiving. And then, a tough stretch coming up for the Seahawks. After the Chargers today, they go to the Rams next week, and that's going to be a pretty
angry Rams team.
Ticked off team. And then they are home for Green Bay. So Green Bay, that's never an easy game. That'll be up there. And then they go to Carolina. So they came into the game today. Seattle did. Pretty healthy. Tyler Lockett was there. I thought they did a good job to battle back. And in Seattle's last 5 games, only the Rams had scored over 17 points. So in 6 games now, just 2 opponents over 17 points.
Yeah, and I thought the Seahawks had a good opportunity in this game to pull it out. In fact, during the preseason, I really thought that the Seahawks could be a team that could sneak into the playoffs. And now with the way the schedule is lining up, it's going to be tough for them.
And guys, William Hill just set up lines for next week's slate of games, and the Seahawks are 10-point underdogs at the LA Rams.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Caleb Sturgis today missing his 5th extra point of the season. Holy smokes.
That's because he's named after a motorcycle rally.
That's so bad.
It's bad. But the kickers, Tony, I'm serious. How many times have we seen kickers? Kickers always miss kicks. That's not what I'm talking about. But it's been a systemic issue for kickers. And David, you brought it up. Actually, you said kickers in college the last few years haven't been very good either.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think this sort of is kickers in college haven't been converting, and that's now translating to the NFL. When you don't have kickers to draft, this is what's going to happen.
So X-Files.
Okay.
Conspiracy theory. Is this the way the NFL's getting rid of kickers?
This is how they're going to get rid of. Well, they can still kick off. They can still kick off unless they kick off like the Ohio State guy did yesterday, that player. But yes, they can still kick off, but they're going to have to just go for 2 points every time.
Oh,
every team.
I would. You know what? It makes the game more exciting. If I'm thinking about viewers, now I know the Players Association might not like it, but if you still got a kicker who's going to kick off, then you're fine. But to me, it makes the game more exciting because you get more offensive plays, right? Now, injuries and all that kind of stuff, so maybe the Players Union won't like it. But I'd rather have them do it and go for a 2-point conversion each time they get down there.
So let's talk about the Texans and the Broncos. That was a close game. Texans win it 19-17 today, 19-17. And did Deshaun Watson, did he have to take a bus up to Denver in the snow?
Yeah, it was a Cadillac.
Go through the Rockies and all that.
Yes, he took the Clydesdales. Oh no, that's Coors.
No,
Sorry.
Seriously though, he had some issues with his ribs and was having a difficult time breathing. So I'm just curious how he responded. Obviously, he played well enough to win. With being in altitude and having problems breathing as it is.
Oh, I know. But you know what? Let me tell you, you could definitely tell he was having trouble, Tony, because all he did was pass for a 125 yard or 125 passer rating, 213 yards. When are people going to give this kid the credit he deserves?
Especially since that injury, 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions last 3 games.
Amazing. I mean, Tony, what does he have to do? I mean, he's got to win a playoff game. Maybe is that what it is?
I think so. And I think the Texans really have put things together now. They took the early 13-3 lead. Deshaun Watson throws a couple of touchdown passes. Jordan Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, and they had a miss by Fairburn, their place kicker.
Place kicker, yeah.
Misses an extra point right in that game. I thought I saw, and so that could have been the point that they needed at the end. And Denver did have the football last. I have to believe that they were going to start driving down the field, and all they needed to do was kick a field goal at the end of the game. It's just awful that you can't make extra points that are 10 feet away. I still can't understand that. That's astounding. When all you have to do is kick the ball, and sometimes in the snow or in the bitter cold, you could see right that there's you give them a little bit of slack, right?
Right.
But if it's perfect conditions. And that's all you do is you're paid to kick extra points. You got to make the extra points. You can't miss 5 in a season. Sooner or later, Sturgis with the Chargers is going to come back and absolutely kill the Chargers in a game. Did you see Rivers after he missed the extra point today?
He went after him. Yeah,
he
absolutely.
went haywire.
Yeah,
I would too. Why not?
Yeah, but that's again the league has de-emphasized kicking. It just has. That's why I don't know why there's this facade of we're still kicking the ball. Why don't you just go to the 2-point conversion? Let the kickers do the kickoffs. Let the punters punt the ball, and let's just get on with it. I mean, you move the extra point back to make it more difficult, which again de-emphasizes. Even on kickoffs now, where the ball is placed, you don't get run backs anymore, hardly ever, because that was taken away as well. So even a kicker, they're going to kick it through the end zone every time because the ball is so close. I just don't understand it. I wish the league would just say, hey, you know what? We're going to 2-point conversion, and that's it.
So it was reported today that before the trading deadline, the Rams had inquired about Jadeveon Clowney.
Wow.
So Clowney of Houston and defensive end Jerry Hughes of the Bills. And that was before they were able to add Dante Fowler to the mix there. So that was pretty interesting. And speaking of trades, Demaryius Thomas. So he returns to Denver within 1 week of being traded. That was very peculiar. They should have made that trade beforehand so it would have just taken some pressure off of poor Demaryius Thomas. So Thomas finished third in receptions for the Broncos, 665 throughout his career. They honored him today for 9 great seasons there in Denver. One of the best to lace him up there with the Broncos. Hung 2 banners, thank you, and play ball, and they played a video, and that was really cool. So Thomas now helping out the receiving core, right? Kiki Kute is out. Will Fuller was injured last week. 2 of the top 3 receivers were injury-plagued, or hurt, I should say, for the Texans heading into today's game.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I think, I like this team. I still think they're probably a year or so away from really being a team who could maybe make a run in the playoffs. But you're right. Hopkins, always loved Hopkins, and I love Deshaun Watson. I think Watson needs to get a little better at throwing the ball. I mean, he's still throwing a little too many interceptions, but I like what they're doing there. If they bolster that offensive squad a little bit and the defensive side, especially on the line to help out Clowney, boy, I'm telling you what, 2020 could be a year that you really watch out for the Texans.
Yeah, and in that game, it did end with a missed field goal. Brandon McManus, a 51-yard field goal attempt, no good, and that's the way that game ended. We didn't quite see that because we were on the air, but that's how the game finished there, and the Texans were victorious. Stay tuned, much more on the way. We'll talk some Raiders when we return on the PG right after this.
with Tony Cordasco and Scott Goldbranson on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 AM, Las Vegas. Call now and rave about your team's Sunday stat line, 702-889-5978.
You know, we were talking about the Texans right before the break. So Deshaun Watson now, his completion percentage is around 65%, which is pretty good.
Yep.
And now he has 17 touchdowns with 7 picks. No interceptions today. And I wanted to look up the Demaryius Thomas stats. So targeted 3 times and 3 receptions today. Pretty decent day in his return home. And DeAndre Hopkins had 10 catches, 105 yards, and he was targeted 12 times. You know, Watson pretty much right now, you can contain him from running the football. You know that. It takes away, I think, one of the weapons that he can possess.
Right.
And he was sacked 4 times today, where typically, you know, when he's healthy, when he can move, when he's mobile, I don't think he gets sacked as much.
No, and that's it. He doesn't have to be a running quarterback, right? He can be a pocket passer. He just needs that protection and needs to be elusive enough. I mean, we're watching on TV now Aaron Rodgers right now. He does that too. He's a quick quarterback. He can run if he has to, but what he does is he can create things with his feet, and I think that's what Deshaun Watson needs to do is be back there and be able to be comfortable being a pocket passer who can float out and throw the ball downfield versus just pulling the ball in and running.
So let's get into some Raiders talk, and I know you guys discussed much of this morning on the Silver and Black Today show. Heard right here on most of these stations. No, on this station, CBS Sports 1140 a.m. On Sundays from 8 to 10 a.m. So what is this about the Raiders who are now filling holes by making more holes? So on Saturday, they cut Bruce Irvin, who had played just 9 snaps in Thursday's loss at San Francisco.
Yep. Well, Bruce Irvin, when they traded Khalil Mack, John Gruden said it. He said, you need to step up, and he's got to be a leader. He did not be a leader. He was not the leader. In fact, he sort of, I think Khalil Mack being traded was the death knell for Bruce Irvin. He just did not respond well. He didn't play well. Doesn't mean he doesn't have something left in the tank, but he wasn't really able to do anything. And when John Gruden talked to the press, they actually asked him about players and what was going on with the team, and this is exactly what Coach Gruden had to say.
No, there's a lot of tough decisions that we have had to make in the first couple months on the job here. And one of the decisions that we have made is we are going to continue to coach hard. We're going to be enthusiastic and upbeat. We're going to develop these young guys, and we're going to call on our veteran leaders to lead. And if there's a better player out there, someone we think that can come in and help us this year and for the future, we will look hard at doing that. But making roster changes during the season, as you know, are very difficult to do. We're going to keep coaching hard and raise the standards on the practice field and hopefully get results on game day.
There you have it. I mean, he said, and that's why you see Bruce Irvin saying bye to the Raiders. And it's true, though. Who are you going to get? I think at this point, this defense, Tony, is so bad. I mean, I honestly said, I think I texted you, I texted Matt, who hosts the show with both of us. I don't know that I've seen a defense that's performed that poorly. The 49ers had 7 sacks against the Raiders in the game on Thursday. The Raiders have 7 sacks total as a team this year.
Yeah, and as soon as I heard that Gruden had said the day before Irvin got cut that, you know, the reason why Irvin didn't play but 9 snaps in the game against San Francisco was because he doesn't fit in our scheme. Well, that's when you know the writing's on the wall.
Yeah.
He said he's not fitting in to what we're trying to do defensively.
That was his version of I love you, but I'm not in love with you.
Yes, from the movie. Yes, that movie. And the Raiders with a couple of losses in the week. So Sunday against the Colts, we recap that game here. Thursday, humiliation, 35-3, the loss of the Niners. It's a game in which, again, the Raiders just cannot put anything together. And now they're minus 54 in the fourth quarter.
It's incredible. It is, I think, a new version of futility. Matt on the show this morning said that the record for double-digit losses in a row for an NFL team is 6 games. The Raiders are already at 4. And that defense, I mean, there's plenty of criticism on the offense with the offensive line and injuries, and the rookies are playing there. But the defense is so bad, and the defense is so bad, it's creating friction amongst the coaching staff, at least emotionally. We saw John Gruden go to Paul Gunther twice during this game,
screaming at him,
yelling
at him, yeah,
and not using the vernacular of a church boy. So the media asked Gruden about this kind of discord between Gunther and him, and here's what he had to say.
Look, you go down the field, you score a touchdown, and I don't know, the next play they get a 51-yard run, and yet what the hell happened? You're on the phone talking with somebody, and the next thing you know, it's a big play, and frustration kicks in on his behalf and my behalf, and I'm sure emotions get caught on tape sometimes. But there's not a better coach I know than Paul Gunther, and there's not a better friend that I have than Gunther, and we're going to argue and jaw probably tonight, deep into the night over a lot of things, and I'll see if we can get video footage for you.
He'll be fired. He'll be fired on Monday.
Well, it's interesting, though, Tony. I mean, again, Michael Lombardi on our show this morning, too, said the Raiders need to draft offensive line and defensive line because without an offensive line and defensive line, you cannot win in the NFL. And so this isn't going to be fixed overnight. They got the Chargers coming up. It's going to be tough. They're already 10-point underdogs there. We'll see what happens, but you either believe in Gruden or you don't.
And John Gruden also said afterward, hey, we've struggled, but I take responsibility for that. So he knows about accountability. But he is going to build this team his way.
Yeah.
His way.